Hello and welcome to another edition of the fifth quarter. I'm Mike Ciarochi, sports editor of Herald-Standard.com. I'm joined as usual by George Von Benko, columnist on Herald-Standard.com and a radio personality at WMBS. As you can see from the background, we are out at Steelers training camp here in beautiful, somewhat soggy, about to become steamy Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Site of the Steelers training camp. George, you've been out here a number of years, as have I. Your impressions of this year's camp so far?
Actually, it's a little bit more laid back than any camp I can recall in recent history, and there may be a reason for that. There are no two-a-days anymore because of the collective bargaining agreement. I was talking with Aaron Smith the other day, and he said some of the rookies were complaining, and Aaron told him that this is like a country club compared to the way it used to be.
Yeah. Of course, the rookies this year have a bit of a bigger road to hoe than normal. They didn't have the
quicker learning curve.
Didn't have the benefit of the OTAs or coaching sessions or mini camps or any of that. They're just kind of matter of fact, they didn't even know which team they would be playing for until days before camp, literally. So tougher on the younger guys, and a lot of the veterans I've spoken to have a lot of sympathy for the younger guys. They're not given that benefit that the other guys have had when they were coming.
Well, the veterans dislike OTAs and they dislike some of the extra work, but it is of primary importance for a younger football player because that's your learning curve. In fact, I was talking with Dick LeBeau after the morning walkthrough, and he said it is definitely an accelerated learning curve for some of the younger guys. He says, but there's still time for them to shine. He says, and football players, the learning curve is one thing, but being able to show up in a game and make a play and do some other things, that comes with the territory. So he says, yes, it is difficult, but there is still an opportunity for these guys to, as Mike Tomlin would say, make a splash.
Yeah, splash plays. He's the king of that.
Yes.
One guy who has made a lot of splash plays here in the workouts anyway is a rookie running back there and back.
And the coaching staff is loath to talk about rookies. Tomlin will not.
Right.
All he'll say is he's a rookie, but if you watch some of the things that he's done, he's picked up things pretty quickly. He is an intriguing running back because I asked him the other day how he would describe his running style. And he said, I'm not like Mendenhall and I'm not like some of these other guys. He says, I describe myself toughness. He says, toughness is something that you can control and you can bring to the table, and I pride myself on toughness. And he also is smart enough to realize that the way to make a team as a rookie is to do some things on special teams, and he's really taken that to heart.
Yeah. He's also, he showed a lot in blitz pickup. The famous.
Well, that's
drill.
that toughness. I mean, he's picking up linebackers.
Oh, the one day he took on Stevenson Sylvester in back-to-back. No, Stevenson Sylvester first, and he took on Jason World back-to-back. Stoned those guys cold. Mike Tomlin was standing there and just said, anyone else want to take on Mr. Batch?
Well,
James Harrison stepped up.
The night game, the night practice, they had backs on backers, and he stood up Lamar Woodley and Timmons. So that's saying something.
Yeah. He's making a mark. Of course, we have a guy from our neck of the woods here trying out for the Steelers, Terrence McCray, wide receiver from Connellsville. It's a tough situation for all the young guys. Trying to make this team as a wide receiver is going to be equally difficult.
It will, although if you look at what is happening on the periphery of this team with they tried to sign Plexico Verse, they weren't able to do it. Jericho Cotchery was in here the other day, and that's still a possibility. Reggie Kelly came in as a tight end possibility, but the fact that they tried to sign Burris and now they're trying to sign Cotchery, that tells you that in Kevin Colbert's mind and the hierarchy of the Steelers' mind, they think that they're not as deep at wide receiver as they would like to be. They need some help there.
No, right.
But whether a young kid can make that, that's the problem.
That's tough. It would be really nice, I think, to see him get on the practice squad maybe for a year and then come back and give it another good shot next year, perhaps a better
I think that would be the best case scenario for them.
Yeah. looks like the team is staying relatively healthy so far. We got the preseason straight ahead. What do you look for in the preseason this year as opposed to maybe other years? Is there anything different?
Well, I think we're going to really get a long look at the younger kids because of that accelerated learning curve that we're talking about. And maybe some of the veterans won't see as much action until later in the preseason. Yeah. But I really think you're going to get a heavy dose of the young kids because they want to see what they can do. Right. And this is the only chance they're going to have to, because that learning curve is so accelerated.
Yeah, and you can show all you want in a practice, but until you show it in a game, it's kind of showing it to nobody really what you do in practice. You make plays in the game, that's what the coaches are looking for.
You mentioned injuries. It has been relatively injury-free, although the offensive line has been a little nicked up. And it's nothing major, but it's nagging little things and hamstrings and things like that. And the other thing, I don't know whether they took him on. Did they take him off? Is Kimoyatu was still on the pup list for a while
because he's still on.
Yeah, because he's still recovering from that knee surgery.
Yeah. Had a little bit of swelling in there. All that having been said, the offensive line has been a whipping boy around here for a good long while. Even though they've been to 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years or 5 years, that to me is amazing. I guess it kind of goes with the grunt work that these guys do day in and day out. But I think they're going to be perhaps not spectacular, but I think they're going to be solid up front.
I do too, and the key there is to avoid. Last year was a disaster injury-wise on the offensive line, which makes it even more remarkable that they were able to go to the Super Bowl and do what they did. And I think a lot of credit has to go to Sean Kugler, the line coach, for keeping that group together and on the same page.
And he actually found a couple of players throughout the process. I mean, Doug Legursky, who'd have thought he could be not only a serviceable offensive guard, but a starting center in the Super Bowl. They brought Jonathan Scott in. He's going to become a starter, I believe, at left tackle this year. So it's kind of a never-ending search for the right 5 guys. Again, as I said, I think they'll be solid, if not spectacular.
And on the other side of the ball, I think it's going to be business as usual. I had a long conversation with Dick LeBeau, the veteran defensive coordinator, as rain is starting to creep into the scene here at Latrobe. But he felt, and he says it remains to be seen, that the lockout actually benefits maybe some teams like the Steelers and some other teams who are veteran teams, because you got a little bit more rest and you didn't have as much wear and tear on some of the older guys, and there's not as much of a learning curve for that defense as there would be for some other teams. And he said that he's really happy with the defense. There's some great leadership on that defense. He says, plus, let's not forget, they are getting a little long in the tooth, but there are some guys that are on the way defensively. Ziggy Hood, Worlds, some of those guys that are going to make an impact on. And he mentioned Cameron Hayward, the number 1 draft pick as well. So there's some young blood right behind those older guys.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the Steelers will have at least, I guess, the opportunity to start the same 11 on defense this year that they did last year. Plus, they have a lot of the same backups. They may have the top, 17, 18 players back from last year's defense. So,
well, and injuries play a part there too, because the defense we saw in the Super Bowl was not the Steeler defense that was prevalent throughout most of the season, because Polamalu was just a shell of himself in it, and to some extent Harrison.
Yeah, but they also knew they needed to upgrade a little bit at cornerback. I think they did that through the draft, although,
how much of an impact are they going to make early on?
The common thought with fans, I believe, is if it's not a first-round pick, what good is he? But, they've had success in the middle to later rounds, too, with some of these guys. We'll see. The one draft choice, Curtis Brown, I believe, has shown some things at practice.
That's the kid from Texas.
Yes. I think they're pretty high on him, and I'm not saying he's going to come in and become an instant starter headed toward Canton, Ohio, but the guy can come in and give them some plays. I think that's all they're looking for.
Well, it's interesting. One of the areas that I focused on with LeBeau when I talked to him this morning was the secondary. He doesn't like to break it down into cornerbacks and safety. He talks about the secondary as a whole, but I broke it down and I said, look, if you read the preseason magazines, you listen to the talking heads on television, they're all saying that cornerback is a problem area for the Steelers. And while not getting into it specific, he said you could say that about every team in the National Football League because that you're on an island when you're a cornerback. He said that's an area where you can get exposed and get exposed very quickly. He says, but if you look at our defense, our cornerbacks have done pretty well the past few years if you look at the overall defense.
Touch a little bit on the offense. I'm thinking this may be one of the more explosive offenses that the Steelers have had. I know on reporting day we had the two young receivers, Emmanuel Sanders and what's his name?
Brown.
Antonio Brown, saying they want to each get 1,000 yards receiving. Mike Wallace took it a step further and said he wants to go for 2,000.
And I asked him about that, and he says, no, I think I do have a higher tier. He was honest about it. He said, I think I do have a higher tier to my game.
Apparently they're going to be getting a lot of yards and putting a lot of points on the board this year. And it starts with the preseason games, and they'll whittle their way down.
Well, Roethlisberger mentioned to me, and that's also the other story of the team. It hasn't been all about Ben Roethlisberger. There's been no news, which is good news, about the quarterback. But he did tell me the other day that he feels that this offense has a chance to be one of the most explosive offenses in Steeler history. That's strong words.
Yeah, it is. So I think that'll pretty much take care of it before we get totally drenched. I want to give George an opportunity to get a free plug-in for his book called Memory Lane, of all things.
The compilation of some of the Memory Lane columns that appeared in the paper, and it is available right now at all Bradley's book outlets. There's one at the Uniontown Mall, 7 other locations in the area, Barnes & Noble online, and online at the Fayette County Sports Hall of Fame website, and it's doing pretty well right now.
Okay, what is this Fayette County Sports Hall of Fame website?
www.fayettecountysportshalloffame.com.
All right, and with that will wrap up this edition of the 5th quarter. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.